Вітаю всіх, хто приєднався до нас. З вами
Hello, everyone who has joined us. This is Olga Atamanova in Ukraine Media Center. It is 174th day of the full-scale invasion, and our media group has a set of events for you today. At 1 p.m. we will have here Sergei Gorbachev, the educational ombudsman of Ukraine. We will be discussing the beginning of the academic year and also the results of the national multiple subject test. At 2:30 we will have Roman Slaston, the director of the Ukrainian Agricultural Business Club. We will be discussing the harvest of 2022 and the experts. And right now we will hear from Yuriy Ignat, the spokesperson for the Air Force Command of Ukraine's armed forces. Hello, glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Let us begin with the discussion of what was happening over the last day. Yesterday there were many air raid alerts. We were informed that the aviation of the enemy became more active. So what's happening? Everything is unfolding as planned, so to speak. The armed forces of Ukraine are still defending the airspace. The aviation of the enemy is successfully kept at bay, but also we are noticing the aviation activity on the part of the enemy. There are on average about 50 attempts of flight from Russia, from Belarus, from the occupied Crimean Peninsula. So this increased activity is also observed at the Belbek airport near Sevastopol because of the explosion at the Saki airport, which was used for the tactical aviation of the occupiers. But we are also noticing some reduction of activity of the Russian aviation over the last 3 to 4 days. So the numbers of the aircrafts, the radars go down, but still there is assault aviation such as Su-25, the helicopters Ma-24 and 28, and also K-52. So 3 of such helicopters were destroyed over the last day, and also we continued to destroy UAVs. Over the last day, 2 Orlans were destroyed, and also 1 aviation cruise missile, X-59, that is launched from Russian aircraft. It also was downed. So our aviation is still patrolling the airspace here in Ukraine. Also, they are defending from the air the activities of the assault aviation and aviation of the land forces. So over the last day, there were 10 different attacks on the occupation troops in the east, in the south of our country. Some MLRS systems and tanks and equipment and troops of the enemy, as well as field storage facilities with ammunition and fuel were damaged. So in the beginning of this full-scale invasion, there were 700 aircrafts around Ukraine, including 450 planes and 250 helicopters. So many of those were destroyed already, but the enemy has the capacity to refill them, bring in more equipment from other regions of their country. Right now, there are 430 aircrafts near Ukrainian borders in Russia, Belarus, and the Crimea. But also the numbers of helicopters are up. Right now, there are about 360 helicopters that the enemy keeps close to the borders. That's because the aviation activity is down, so the assault aviation and assault helicopters are used more often. That's more or less the situation. All types of aviation are used. We see strategic aviation, long-range bombarders, destroyers, Su-34, assault aviation, also A-50 aircrafts, which continue to be deployed in Belarus and Russia. So speaking of Belarus, we are getting the information that there is a higher concentration of missiles in Belarus, that there are some plans to attack Ukraine. Do you have any comment on this? The armed forces of Ukraine keep tracking the movements of the troop and also transportation of Iskander and other missiles. It's not happening on some specific date. It keeps happening all the time. So there are some data, some intelligence data, some open source data, according to which the enemy is bringing in more capacities to the Belarusian territory. There is a political component threatening the west, at the western borders of that country, but also they are threatening Ukraine. There surely is some threat, and it has always been there. Let me remind you that Russia was using the territory of Belarus since day one of this invasion for the aircrafts, for Tochka U, for Iskander systems. So we have information from the intelligence department and from other agencies about these movements. Quite soon we are going our Independence Day, our great national holiday. Surely the enemy always uses such days to congratulate us, quote unquote. So we have to be ready. We have to observe air raid alerts and precautions. We have to understand that this threat is with us daily, although we are not noticing that much activity over the last days. So one of the news updates of today's morning are explosions near the city of Jankoy. Do you have any comments on this? Well, I have nothing to add here. There is the official position of the Ukrainian government, including military government. The enemy is not observing the fire precautions, hence the problems, but we are, of course, satisfied by the fact, because Jankoy was one of the locations where the enemy kept their helicopters and other equipment. Judging from the video that was available in the open sources, we could see the detonation of ammunition, the explosion of missiles. Of course, we are pleased to see that, because we hope that this way the enemy will be losing its equipment and some of its troops, some of its pilots, just as it happened in Saki. So, of course, there were over 10 aircrafts that were destroyed in that fire, but we also understand that many of their pilots and engineering personnel also died. So even if Russia can bring in more aircrafts, it still takes some time to get more professionals. And do we have any understanding of the losses of the enemy near Jankoy? Well, it's too early to announce anything, but our investigation, our intelligence agencies already have some data. The data is confidential. Quite soon, some information will be publicly available. There will be some satellite images. People are quite interested right now in such things. Usually it takes 4 to 5 hours for such images to become openly available. So we have numerous military experts right now. I mean, those who are willing to comment on the military equipment available. I believe this will be widely covered everywhere. So your questions, dear colleagues. I'm Victoria Shevchenko from Ukraine Forum. My question is, you mentioned that recently the activity of the Russian aviation went down, but what are the areas where the assault aviation is more active than on others? They are quite active. I mean, both the assault aviation of Ukraine as well. So let us start with us. So we are using the helicopters Mi-24, 28 that are attacking the enemy, and we have completed almost 2,200 attacks on the enemy positions. Surely Russia is doing the same. They use the same kind of assault aviation. They are mainly using them in Mykolaiv and Zaporizhia region very actively, and surely the East, Luhansk and Donetsk oblasts close to the contact line. The enemy is using its aviation very actively. When our defenders have the opportunity, they down this equipment. You could see this yesterday, and it's happening daily. So yeah, basically the citizen towns close to the contact line where the enemy can attack from low heights. And my second question, it's about the Independence Day, since there is some possibility of mass attack of Ukraine on that day. Are there any additional measures in this regard? Yes, for sure. The enemy usually pays close attention to such important dates. For instance, recently there was a day of air forces, and surely some measures will be taken. But I can also assure you that the air forces are working 24/7. Each day for us is a threat, and we will surely be protecting the skies, but we are also not omnipotent. We have some air defense, we have some aircrafts, and we will be using all of them to defend the skies. And also we encourage our citizens to be vigilant and to follow the air raid alerts. Thank you so much. Thank you for the information you have shared. Thank you, dear colleagues, for your questions. This was Yuriy Ignat, the speaker of the command of the armed forces, Air Force of Ukraine's armed forces, and quite soon we will be discussing the